This is the second installment from Stone Table Studios. The first one I haven't put up yet, and I will, but we're taking a little break from that while my daughter does her homework. So I'm going to give you a little tutorial on how to draw fabric because so many of my students really wanted to spend more time on this and we didn't have the opportunity. So here goes. You can do it from the comfort of your home. I'm going to start for this tutorial with a colored piece of paper. And I just happen to match it to the color of my fabric, but you don't have to. You could use whatever color you have of paper. You could use the inside of a notebook cover that's brown or a tan if you want to do that. You can work in regular pencil if you want, but I'm going to use colored pencils. I just got a new set, so I'm excited about that. And we're going to use not only the color, but we're going to use highlight colors as well, mainly white or lighter blues. So if you are doing this on colored paper, you're going to need your blue. I'm going to take out some other shades of blue and maybe even a little purple just because I don't know if I'll use all of them. And I'm going to find my white, which is way down here at the end. Okay, and I'm going to kind of go through this fast if I can. So just like I've always told you, you need to do some basic shapes. Basic shapes will get you far. It'll look kind of funky at first, but as you put it together, it will come together. So I'm going to start by just taking my pencil, if I can, that's about the same color as my paper, and I'm going to lay in the basic shape. Bear in mind that I'm viewing this from a slightly different angle than you are, so it will look slightly different. So I'm going to look at my shape that I've got here. I'm going to lay in the basic shape of the outline, and I don't care if you're exact or not. Nobody really cares if you're exact with this, but it will just give you something to start with. And I'm doing it lightly. You probably can't even see my lines on the paper, but I can, and that's what matters. See how light that is? Can you see them? No, you can't. Now I won't have to erase it if it's wrong. So now that I have this, I'm going to block in segments of actual folds. So coming up here, I'm going to block in this segment. And wherever you have a fold coming down here in a line, those are all segments. So block them in like little lines. And add a few if you want. Try not to make them too uniform if you're not following your exact fabric, because if you make them too uniform, they're going to look fake, even if you're doing it correctly. So down, and make sure you do some of these shorter ones too. Come down to the front of the fabric. Don't worry too much about the front first. Let's focus on this back part. All right. So can you see those? Are you able to see my lines? I can't tell if you can see them or not. So now I'm going to come in with a darker pencil, and I'm going to start laying in some of the shadows. So wherever you see the dark line, and it's usually right next to the top of a fold, kind of behind the top of a fold, come in with your darker pencil and start to lay in some of that darkness. You don't have to fill it in super dark yet, okay? But just enough so that you're able to see where the shadow is behind the fold. And I'm going to lay that in quickly if I can. And there will be some areas that are less distinct. They won't have a set line. And so you'll be laying in some dark areas without drawing an actual line or having a line to follow. And why am I starting with the dark first? Frankly, I can't remember at the moment. But you can start with a light if you want. I just like to do my darks first and then come in with my highlight colors after. So again, this one has a darker line. Can you see what I'm doing? There. And this one is not an actual line, it's just some shading. Doing it on this kind of paper, it will be a little less easy to blend with my fingertips because it's not as smooth a paper as white paper. Plain white drawing paper has a shinier surface or a closer texture, and so you're able to blend better. This is a rougher texture, and I'm not going to be able to blend quite as easily, but that's all right. Notice on some of these lower folds that it's darker as it recedes farther into the shadow. And doing fabric well takes time, guys. It's not something that you do boom, 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 boom. So I'll show you after this one. I'll lift it up and you can see what I'm doing. Okay, I haven't gone all the way across, but I've got some basic lines. You can see a little bit better where I'm going with this. Okay. Now, I can come in and I can start darkening if I want to. Right along the edge of those lines, it's a harder line. And so even like I have you start with outlines very light, I have you start with your shadows very light too, and then gradually fill them in. And you can go over and over and over, and as you apply more pressure, you'll get a darker line. Lighter pressure, you'll get a lighter line. So as I'm blending this, I start with a heavier pressure at the darkest areas, and then I'm just lightening right out almost to the edge of the next line. Come back in here. This is dark, but it's not as deep as where the fold actually goes over. It's just where the fabric kind of sways in as opposed to folds in. And you'll note that it isn't always consistent all the way along it. Sometimes it gets narrower and sometimes the fold gets deeper. There might be folds within folds. You can probably hear a little background noise here. My daughters are doing their schooling remotely, and so you might hear them moving around and stuff too. I hope you all are finding different art projects to keep you busy when you're not doing schoolwork, and that you're finding time to interact with your friends virtually. Okay. So, got some good things happening here. Let me show you a little bit about what I've got going on. See how it's starting to look more fabric-y. And now just for kicks, I'm going to come in with my white. And on the highest points, or the points where the light is hitting, I've got a window over this way, and so the light's coming from this direction. So that's where I'm going to have highlights. And so right along here, I'm going to start laying in some highlights. Now, if you were just doing this on white paper, this would just be the area that you leave totally white. You'd be putting some kind of color and shading with everything else. And these new pencils, it's nice to have sharp pencils, but they're not quite as good as my Prismacolor, which are a professional pencil. But don't overdo the white. Remember, these are highlights. Okay. And now I'm not doing it as darkly as the color as intensely as I did with some of the blue. And obviously I'm not doing every single little bit of this because it will take me a while to get this the way I want it. But just so you can start to see how it's starting to take on the appearance of fabric. Okay. Now we're not going to neglect these bottom parts. The long drapey folds are actually the easiest, but we're not going to neglect those bottom parts. So I am going to come back in with my blue pencil, and I'm going to start to go to my outline of my fabric and make sure I put some of this in. And remember, deeper color where it goes back away from you. And some of these little folds, let me see if I can find a place where it has it. Like, this is a small one. Let me try to draw it in there. Right here, this area right here, it kind of goes behind. So I'm going to make sure that I make that so that it looks like it's receding behind and under. Okay, and when I do that, if I give it like this, it's dark behind it, carry it up into that long fold above it, and blend. And now I'm going to come in with my white and just highlight that a little bit. And don't worry if these lines, when you do them on the folds, vary in thickness. Like if the line goes from thick to thin when you turn your pencil and whatnot, that's okay. So see this little area that I've done? See how that's starting to look like the fabric actually coming down? I haven't colored in this yet, which I will next. But you want to carry those darker areas down, blending as you go, and you'll start to see it form some of the dimensions of the fabric. Okay. I see that we're starting to get kind of long here. It's 15 minutes. So I'm going to pause. I'm going to do a little bit and explain what I've done afterwards, because if you sit here and watch me for 2 hours, you're not going to be happy. So I will be back in a bit. Okay, I'm back. I'm going to show you my progress. I've been working for probably 40 minutes since we've been gone, and I'm still not done. So again, good fabric takes time. So this is what I have so far. See how it looks really flowy? That's because I'm blending a lot. I'm making sure that I don't have a lot of harsh edges. Now the only colors I've used, again, are my dark blue, my white for the highlights, and then I did come in a couple of places where I wanted it to really recede a lot, like in these deep corners here. And I put just a little bit of black, but not a hard edge, just a little bit. And then I went over it with my blue again. And sometimes if you find that you've gone too dark in a place, you can blend a little bit of white in to kind of back it out. All right. So keep going, keep working on this. Play with it, look at the actual shapes and break it down into segments. Do one segment at a time. I did this little section right here, which is right here. It's not identical, but it looks like fabric. So keep going, keep working on it. I'll come back and show you when I get a little bit further along too. Okay, I've moved right along and spent about 25 minutes more on this, and I laid in my basic blues on this far side. This is pretty much done. See how I've used a lot more white on the highlights in this area so that it would pop it forward. Now I'm going to go over this part with you so that you see, once you've laid in your basic blue color in the darker areas, what you can do. So get your white pencil, and again, we're going to do some highlights right on these outer edges of your folds. And look at it, and if it's a bold line, put a bold line in there, right along that edge, follow along, and then come back and blend that bold line gradually into the color of the remaining blue fabric, okay? And that will give you the edge of the fold, the highlight of the fold. And you'll notice that some folds are deeper than others. Some folds start out as a highlight and then recede into shadow. So really look at what you're doing, but don't be too attached to making it exactly like you see it with fabric. What we want to really do is give this suggestion of fabric. I'm not too concerned with you making it exact. But see how I've come in here now and I've laid in a couple of these. I'm going to come in on those outer edges. The highlights, for the most part, don't go right in the center of the fold. They go on the edge of the fold. just a little bit more on the top of this one. And I have taken liberties with the top of this also. I've got it draped over a white box here, a white foam box, but I didn't want to draw the box. So I changed a little bit the structure of that. Coming in along this far edge, even though this is an edge, it recedes a little bit because I want the center portion of this fabric drape to be closer to me. So I'm coming in with white, but I'm not making it quite as bright as I did the center portion. And all these little areas at the bottom, which I also took liberty with. And you'll see as you lay in some of these highlights how it becomes more fabric-like. Just boom, it pops it right out. Keeping it smooth. And right down here at the bottom, I'm just kind of going over the whole thing lightly to make it blend. Because this fabric is closer to my light source. This part right here recedes in, but see how I've made it like that? And now I'm going to look for just some areas of deep darkness that I want to add a little bit of black to. Don't go overboard with the black, and it's not even necessary if you've got good colored pencils and you don't want to do that and just deepen the color. But you'll notice that some shadows do look black. So I'm going to come in here right in this area and put a little bit of black in. Not dark, not heavy, and certainly not all over the whole fold, but just where it really looks deep. And I'm going to put a little bit in there, a little bit right in this one. The more contrast there is, the more depth you'll have to your fabric. And a few of these little areas where there are deep shadows, where that fold, you want it to really recede. And a little bit right there because that one's contrasted. A little bit right there, a little bit right there, and I think right up here in this top area where that fold, you want that to really pop so it comes open. And now I'm going to come back in with my blue and I'm going to go over those areas and just darken a little bit and blend that black, because I don't want the black to be too noticeable as black. If you leave it on top, it's going to pop, or not pop. You're going to see it too much. We want it to just look like a shadow, not like an outline. And there we go. Make sure to get all those areas where you put the dark. Your deep dark shadows. Give yourself, cut yourself some slack too. This takes a while to master. Okay, I don't even have it mastered yet because I don't spend enough time at it. So don't be too hard on yourself if it doesn't look exactly like you want it to look the first time. The more you do it, the better you'll get at it. Just like anything, just like shooting hoops or riding a bike, you know. Gotta practice. Okay. There. See, when I hold it up to you, I see all sorts of things I want to fix. Now, one thing I'm going to do right here at the very end is I am going to come in with a little bit of black, and in some of these areas underneath this fabric where it would be hitting the table, I'm going to put a little bit of shadow. Not everywhere, but just where it looks like it might be lifted up off of the table a little bit. Or in those deep recesses. And make sure you blend those a little bit too. Okay, don't bring them too far out onto the paper, but blend them in. And there's some fabric. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you practice it. Practice it a lot and you'll get better. All right, have a great day, everybody. See you soon. Bye.